episode of Tools and Trails. Today, time to do a little maintenance on the old XJ here. I've been running it pretty hard, and lately, just had a few of those things where she's kind of trying to tell me something, I think, and so I think it's time to pay attention. Probably a voice of maturity, I don't know, but anyway. So, first thing, I got a little issue with the fuel system on this. I'm afraid it's fuel pump and a little concerned. One of the last trips we took out to the trails, my buddy Jim, his fuel pump just stopped on it, just quit. So real embarrassing when you're trying to lead a bunch of JKs through the desert and your rig breaks down. So I'm going to do some testing on that today, see if that's really the problem or not, and go from there. So also getting ready for emissions on this. So I've had the check engine light come on a couple of times and did the little scanner thing. It says something about a bad TPS report. I don't know what that's all about, so we'll dig into that. And then lately, I've started having some alignment issues. When I'm headed northbound, I got one wheel that wants to go to the west, and one that wants to go to the east, and they're just fighting each other. And so we're gonna grab a couple of broomsticks and see if we can't get her going straight again. So we'll show you how to do that. And the other thing is, if you've done any work on these JKs or XJs and the cooling system, in particular with the 4 liters, they run hot. And all my system is good. I know got a lot of new parts on it, new radiator, water pump and everything. But the other day I popped open the cap on the radiator and there's some stuff floating in there that I don't think is supposed to be there. So we're gonna hook a garden hose up to that, see if we can't flush all that stuff out, get her cleaned up a little bit, and maybe it'll run a little bit cooler. So we'll see how that goes. Since we're doing alignment anyway, probably rotate the tires on it and put these front ones here that are arguing with one another, we'll stick them in the back and hopefully they get along a little better from there. So stay tuned and we'll jump right into it. Okay, we're going to check out the fuel pump and the fuel system here. Just a kind of a brief basics, if you will, on a fuel injected engine. Usually what happens, you got a fuel pump back by the tank, or in most cases actually in the tank, which I never understood. You got an electric fuel pump that makes sparks, and then you're going to stick it down into some flammable fluid. It doesn't make sense, but probably designed by the same guy that designed the 1974 Pinto, I'm sure. But anyway, seems to work. So that pumps fluid, or pumps your fuel up to your fuel rail, which runs along here. Got your fuel injectors, 6 of them in this case, obviously, 6-cylinder. So that's what puts the fuel into your combustion chamber. So what I seem to be experiencing on this is, in the fuel pump, there is a check valve that prevents fuel from flowing back into the fuel tank. And so it is supposed to remain pressure. So on a fuel injected system, they work on pressure. So what happens when this occurs is you turn off the motor and that pressure releases, and then when you go to start it up again, it cranks quite a bit before it actually takes off. So it's building that pressure back up. That's what's happening on this one. So I need to see if that's my problem, and also see if my pump is actually pumping enough PSI to maintain the flow. So I got my little kit here from Harbor Freight, the basic fuel injection service kit. So $50 at Harbor Freight. I'll probably use it twice, which great investment. But anyway, it's always good to have cool tools around, right? So, and it comes with all kinds of stuff. So here's my pressure gauge. All kinds of fittings there that I don't think I'm going to need those. Hopefully not, because I don't know what they all do. So let me undo this. I'm going to be tying it into a port on the fuel rail over here. And this thing should just plug right in, hopefully. So let me get this out of the way. Set that over there. So there's a port over here, right along the fuel rail. It's got a little cap on it you take off here. And it's got a Schrader valve in it. Not to be confused with the Schroeder valve. Schroeder's the guy on Peanuts that plays the piano. It's not the same thing here. I'm sure they're related, you know. I envision that probably at some point after World War II, one of them came to America, changed his name to avoid the shame of being associated with the Nazi Party, I suppose, something like that. Anyway, now this little tube here, so that's gonna tell us the pressure on the gauge here, and based on a couple books I've been reading, looks like we should be around 50 psi. So we'll get to that. This is your release tube, so once this gets pressurized, there's going to be some fuel in this line, which we don't want. So got me a jelly jar here, some raspberry in this case. Throw a little of that on your English muffin in the morning and you're in for a good day. Speaking from experience there. I'm going to just tuck this down here in the corner. Keep that tube in there. But I'm going to route this over here, see if I can't put it up next to the windshield, maybe, so that when I'm cranking on this thing I can kind of see what I'm after, and it doesn't want to cooperate here for me. Come on. There we go. That'll work. Okay, I think I got everything set up. Show you what I'm doing here. I'll give you a little close up. Okay, so what I was talking about right here, we have our inlet line coming from the fuel tank in the back. Then this coming right along here, this tube right here. This is our fuel rail. And you've got injectors, one here, one here, one there, one back behind that contraption, one there and one there. So that's your 6-cylinder. Then this is my port right here, my Schroeder valve. And then I got this coming back to my gauge that I've got tucked in behind the windshield wiper here so that I can see it through the windshield. And then I've just stashed my little jelly jar down here in the corner. I think we've got the tubes all hooked up. So I'm going to go ahead and get in and crank on this thing a little bit and see what happens. Okay, we got the gauge there, so I'm inside the Jeep now. Let's see if she cranks up here. Already getting a little pressure from just turning the key on. So pressure-wise, jumps right up there to about 46, 47-ish pounds. You know, that's pretty good. I can live with that. Let's see what happens now when I turn it off. What I want to do is I want that needle to stay there for a good couple of minutes, and if it starts to drop right away, that means we got a bad check valve in that pump and it's probably not going to work. So let's see what happens. Yeah, it's going down, so here in just a few seconds I've already lost 10 psi. And it's probably going to drop all the way down to about that 20 pounds or so where it was when we first kicked it over. So yeah, that check valve, that concerns me a little bit. Pump seems to be operating okay though, so we'll see. This may not be something that I jump on right away. It does seem to be functioning okay. Yeah, it seems like it's held there for a bit, so She drops off within a few, 30 to 45 seconds it lost 20 psi. So fire it up again. As soon as I turned it on, it's right back up where it's supposed to be. So it runs in the right range. So I'll maybe do a little bit of research, see what we think, but I think for right now I'm not going to get too crazy about it, just because in order to change it I got to drop the gas tank and all that kind of stuff, and that's not what I want to do. So okay, so we're going to go ahead and unhook our gauge here. It's got this little release valve on the side over here, so once I hit that, I'm betting all that fuel. Nothing really. Okay, well, I'll probably make a mess when I undo that, so nothing even in the jelly jar. So put jelly back in that. So unhook this. Take off the Schroeder valve there. Put the cap back on. Okay, next thing is got to handle this TPS thing. So I was getting a code on my check engine light was coming on, so checked that with my scanner, and it came up with a P0123 code, so got to look that up. Turns out it's the throttle positioning sensor, so which this little thing right here. So since we're due for emissions, I can't go through there with any kind of check engine light coming on, so cleared that on the computer, but still need to change this. It's probably kind of heading south on me. So this is one part that I love getting stuff on Amazon and eBay and whatnot, but this is probably one place that you should not go cheap. Usually when it comes to sensors and stuff, you can go down to your auto parts store and they usually have the fairly good stuff there. Name brand components. This is by Standard. This is like almost $60, $58 I think it was. You can buy this same thing on Amazon for $12. Problem is, it's only going to last you probably a couple weeks. So sensors and things like that, I would highly recommend just getting the good stuff, spend the extra money, because it's going to hang in there a little bit better. So. Okay, so that's fairly easy to change, really, besides just getting access to the little star-headed bolts in there. But fired it up, idled right out, nice and even, no check engine light, so we should be good to go there. So pretty happy about that. We'll do some driving around to make sure that it doesn't change. It was only coming on if you were really kind of pushing it down the highway a little bit. So, we'll see how that goes, but I think we're good for now, so we'll take her down and get her emissioned. Okay, time for us to tackle the alignment here on this thing. So what I've got here is got a little piece of square metal, quarter-inch square metal rod here, left over from some other project that I was doing that I didn't finish. So we're going to use this. You can use a broomstick if you want, whatever straight piece you got laying around, as long as you have two of them. So I'll already put the one on the other side to save us a little time. So what I'm going to do, give me a couple pieces of wire here. I'm just going to run these through the wheel. Get it about there. Get that one. Get me one more on the other side here. That's probably good enough. Then we're going to take our little metal rod here, broomstick or whatever you have, set her up against the wheel. Now you want it kind of overhanging both in the front and in the back a little bit. This back one I got to get underneath the rig, so we're going to drop that down just a fuzz. Lots of clearance in the front, so that should be fine. All right, we're going to twist these on here. You don't want them super tight. Just enough to hold them in place there. Probably good. Now I know what some of you are saying, you know, this is only going to get you alignment from side to side. And, you know, what about your Casper and your Camber and your Condor and all that other stuff? And, you know, I got to tell you, I didn't go to the Rick Hendricks School of Racing, so I don't know how to set all that stuff, and I'm not going to try. All I'm trying to do is get this wheel from stop to fight with that other wheel. So and get these things down the road together. So that's all I'm after. Okay, that's pretty good. She's on there nice and straight. So with that set, I'm going to show you, because this is already really out of balance. So, okay, little safety tip here before we start measuring. These little wires here, they're kind of sharp. So I was walking by the other one and got my leg on that one, and yeah, she left me a nice scratch there. So yeah, keep an eye on that stuff. So maybe just take these things and kind of roll them down a little bit. Get rid of that. Okay, so use my friend Stanley here. You can see if we can get a measurement from side to side. Reach your way across there. There, we got her. All right. This is 72 7/8. Back 72 7/8. Front one. All the way across. Yeah, she's 73 15/16, so about an inch out from front to back. So we need to know our target there then is going to be probably somewhere around 72.5, give or take, for both of them. So we'll go underneath, show you how to adjust that real quick. I'll leave these on here, and then we can, once we get adjusted there a little bit, and we can take some more measurements and go. Okay, so this is the unit right here that needs some adjusting on, and we got a threaded joint here. This is the tie rod, by the way. Got an adjustment point here at this ball joint, tie rod end joint here at the left wheel, and then we got one over here next that ties into the center link, and that's got an adjustment there too. So one of these is reverse threaded, so you just loosen up the clamps, turn it one way or another, and it either sucks the whole thing in or it expands it out. So we've got to come in, you know, we're looking for probably need about 1/4 of an inch, I think, on each end, and that should do it for us. So I'm looking at this thing, and this thing's seen some use. So what we're doing today is kind of for the short term. I do have some plans for this to upgrade this bar to a heavier duty tie rod off of a Jeep Grand Cherokee, which is beefier. So I'll be doing that in the future, but for now, we just got to stop these tires from fighting which way we're going. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can't get this loosened up and sucked in. Start with this one over here that nobody can see because of my fat head. See what old Stanley has to say here. I think we're pretty close. I think we're close enough to leave it anyway, at least for now. So we're going to measure this across the front. That's an even 73 and a half. And the back side. Whoop. There's my bar. A little more. There we go. We're at 73 3/8. So we are towed out just a little bit on the front, which is what I would prefer as opposed to being, towed in. Towed in, it's also gonna, want to wander a little bit. So having it towed out just a little bit is okay. Yeah, we definitely want to address that tie rod before too long. It's gotten more damage there than I thought. I'll show you underneath there too some of the things to look for. We got some tie rod ends that the covers are starting to split. So got some things under there we're going to need to work on before too long, but I do have some plans for the whole front end anyway, so we'll just address it all at that time. So I think we're in good shape. We're going to snip off the old broomstick alignment devices. Might hang on to those. They're pretty handy. Okay, so this is kind of what I wanted to show you as we, so I was looking at this ball joint, or I keep calling them ball joints. They're not ball joints, they're just tie rod ends. But this rubber boot here, that's got a pretty good crack in it right there. There's one back here behind, so grease is coming out of those things. It'd be preferred if you keep the grease inside of them. They'll last a lot longer. So, and then this tie rod right here, this has got a really bad bend in it right here. This got thumped pretty hard at one point. So it's one of the reasons why a lot of people upgrade these, especially in the XJs, because this tie rod on the XJs is just it's a hollow tube all the way across. And if you go back to the tie rod from a earlier Jeep Grand Cherokee with the V8, the ZJ, this is a solid bar, and so it's much sturdier, and it'll take a lot more abuse. So that's the plans for this. We're going to upgrade that here in the relative near future. Just all this geometry stuff in here we'll replace. We'll do hopefully new track bar back here, so this is all going to be new. Center link, we'll do that as well. So anyway, this should get us by for now, at least get us going straight down the road. But before I do any serious wheeling, I'm going to want to make sure I get this done. So something for the future. Okay, for this next step, I had to move outside because this is going to get a bit messy. So the idea here is to flush out the radiator, flush out the whole cooling system on the engine, because I saw some floaties over there in the cap on the radiator that I don't think they belong. So it's been a while since I've had this open, so I think just a good flush is going to do us some good. So here the water tinkling away, so that's not just me. We're going to put a fitting, a little T-fitting like this right into this upper heater hose right here. Put a cap on it, cinch that down with some hose clamps. That's where we're going to put in the water for from the garden hose. So that'll flush through the system. Over on this side, got a handy little adapter here, making a fitting so it doesn't spew everywhere. This is going to push into the radiator, I think. Maybe not. It'll go. And then I'm going to drain that into my Homer bucket over here. So we'll see how she goes. And when, before we're done here too, I'm looking at this radiator hose right here, and kind of got her kinked up in here kind of bad. So let's see if we can't remove that, flatten it out, get this laid down a little bit better, get it off the battery. So I hate to rub a hole in that hose. So pretty new hose. I don't know why I didn't notice that before. anyway, we'll get that fixed. So let's start cutting. Okay, so we got the all the coolant flushed out and everything put back together and refilled again. So a couple things. Did address this hose, and so I'm kind of glad I caught that. I think this was getting kinked off just a little bit and probably slowing down the flow a little bit. Plus rubbing on the battery in the back here, and so trimmed off a little bit of the hose here where it comes into the radiator. Kind of repositioned my clamp a little bit, and so a lot happier with how that lays in there now. So hopefully that helps us a little bit. Got the port right here on the upper heater hose, so that'll be there now. So if we need to do it again, it's pretty easy. Just snag onto that and let it rip again. So pretty happy with how all that went. Not really as dirty as I thought it might be. You know, I thought that'd be worse than cleaning out the sink at the local Chinese buffet down there, but not bad. Pretty clean actually. So pretty happy about that. So now I'm confident that we're ready to start the summer here in Phoenix with this thing, and we got the cooling system all ready to go. So happy about that. Okay, well, I always like to do a little bit of a tool review, just kind of go over some of the stuff that we used. And as you can see, this is everything I used today for all the stuff that I did, and nothing here very out of the ordinary, really. So probably the one of the things that stands out the most, I do have a scanner. You know, and these used to be super expensive, and they're just not anymore. I think I picked this one up on Amazon for like $45 or something like that. Definitely not as fancy as some of the ones you can buy, but you know, pull up all the codes on your car. If you get a check engine light that comes on and your car is newer than 1996, this will tell you what that code is, and then you can do some research and figure out what's the problem. So really helpful for diagnosing some things, and so that's probably the one special thing. The star-tipped tools, you know, screwdrivers, and I had a tip for a drill that I used. I just stuck in a socket, taped it in there. I needed that for the TPS sensor, the throttle positioning sensor. So that's probably about as specialized as they get. You know, I do need to get a new set of the tips for the screwdrivers, but you know, this seemed to work. It's funny, these sensors, they seem to have a weird head like this, or a lot of them I've come across is a 5.5 millimeter socket. So kind of a strange size, so I don't know why. Probably the only other thing that's kind of crazy is I ended up making a tool for this one. The petcock on the drain for the radiator is this little plastic wing nut basically, and it's tucked way up inside next to two pieces of metal that you can't hardly get your fingers in there. And so when you got fat fingers like me, it's next to impossible, and you can't get a pair of pliers on it. It's kind of flimsy. So I took a socket, found me a 12 millimeter, cut a little groove in it with my grinder there, and I was able to just stick that on there with an extension on my ratchet and just back her right out. So that worked really slick. So now I've got that, I'll stick that in my drawer full of sockets and never use it again. So, but I got it if I need it. So, well, Stanley helped me out when we were doing the alignment. Wire brush, just cleaning up the threads on some of that stuff down there. A pair of cutters for the tubing, putting in the port for the flushing the radiator, as well as trimming off that radiator hose. Otherwise, basic stuff here, nothing magic, guys. Everybody can do this, so not that difficult. So there it is. Okay, so just wrapping this up. We had a pretty productive day today. Got a lot done, a lot of things checked out on the old XJ here. So Checked on the fuel pump, changed out the throttle positioning sensor, did the old broomstick alignment here, and flushed out the radiator and the cooling system. So that's good. Those are all things that I was getting a little bit concerned about. The flushing of the radiator and the cooling system probably didn't need to be done, but like I said, we're just getting, it's the end of May here in Phoenix. We're just getting into those months where it is just too hot to do anything and people start overheating quite a bit. So now I'm comfortable that the cooling system on this thing is in as good a condition as it can be anyway. These aren't great, but hey, we'll take it. As far as the alignment goes, this thing just right down the road, so it doesn't pull to the left or the right. So we're good. We made some good headway there. So at least in that department, we did find some things under here that do need some upgrading, and that's kind of been the last one of the things that's on the list for me to do. Front end on this is getting a little tired. The lift that I have on this is kind of cobbled together and it's worked really well, but it's time to upgrade some things, and so that's one of my next major projects. Saw that tie rod down there, it's got a really nice at the one end, so yeah, we need to do some bigger stuff, but this will keep us on the road for a bit anyway, and I'm not going to want to do a whole lot of real hard off-road running, but you know, for now it's good. Throttle positioning sensor, I think that's been starting to go for a while now, and when I was driving it on the road, the throttle response and its idle and everything was way better. So I think that's definitely was needed. So anyway, check engine lights off, and I got to get emissions, so that's good. So as far as the fuel pump, you know, that kind of confirmed what I was thinking, confirmed my suspicions. I was kind of surprised that it pulled as much pressure as it did. I was expecting that to be kind of down in the 40 PSI range, maybe even a little lower. So I was really happy to see that it was higher and closer to 50. The check valve in it is probably shot or going bad, and so I should replace it at some point. I probably won't. I'll get stranded somewhere, it'll let me down. I'll be 30 miles from somewhere by myself, full tank of gas. It'll happen. But I should do it. I just won't. I know me. Anyway, we'll run it till it breaks, and then I'll have to tell you all about it. So there's that to look forward to. So anyway, that's it for this episode. So thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, click that bell down there at the bottom so you can get some notifications on the upcoming videos, and leave me some comments, see what you think, and give me some advice. I need it sometimes. So thanks for watching. We'll see you on an upcoming episode of Tools and Trails.